Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
I'm Asana Keatano. Good morning.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
We're almost at the middle of the month of July, Marlene.
That's right.
Today being the 12th of July. Time seems to be flying fast.
It does. It absolutely does. And, we're getting the week started. It's a full week ahead. A lot to get into. And so we're going to just move into some of our housekeeping and get you going with some motivation this morning. And that means it's time for Eye Opener. Our Eye Opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. A change in perspective, behavior, or response can do so much more to help us move past issues left unresolved. Repeated bouts of adversity are an unavoidable aspect of human existence. We battle against our inner struggles or outer world forces, and in many cases, we emerge on the opposite side of our struggle, stronger and better equipped to cope with the challenges yet to come. However, we can occasionally encounter trials that seem utterly hopeless. We strike at them with all of our creativity and perseverance, hoping desperately to bring about change, only to be met with the same results as always. Our first instinct in such situations is often to push harder against the seemingly immovable obstruction before us, assuming that this time we will be met with a different outcome. But staying power and stamina net us little when the same choices consistently garner the same results. Courting the change you wish to see in yourself and in the world around you is a matter of acknowledging that only change begets change. The results you so ardently want to realize are well within the realm of possibility, and you need only step away from the well-worn circular path to explore the untried paths that lie beyond it.
What is particularly interesting about the Eye Opener is the fact that it sort of reiterates what we already know but perhaps take for granted. The fact that in order to sort of effect or appreciate meaningful change, we need to change our point of view. We need to change our perspective. Sometimes the way we see things may not necessarily be the approach that is necessary to be taken at that point in time. But it sounds almost cliche in a sense, because while we know exactly what that means, when we're embroiled in a situation or we're entrenched in that particular moment, it is difficult for us to say, okay, let me step back and take a different approach with a different angle or point of view here.
Yeah.
You're so embedded, you're so emotionally invested, or your mind doesn't tell you anything else other than what is in front of you.
That's
right. And I think for me, that is the point where I can honestly say that I can appreciate others around me who are, how do I say, who have my well wishes.
Bring perspective, yeah.
Because me not being able to see it in the moment, and I lean on you and say, hey, what do you think about this? Because for whatever reason, perhaps I've tried more than once and I end up getting the same result. But if I ask you, you're seeing it from the outside, you can share a different perspective. And that to me is what not only builds a stronger bond between us, but it allows me to also be able to be open-minded.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I hear you on the support structure that you can have outside, especially when you don't realize that you have on blinders and being able to go after a particular target. But You know, I think the general consensus is that we're not all as open to change as we say we are,
Yeah.
or we're not all as open to change as we want to be. Because the theoretical and the end goal are very different from putting it into practice. I love that the eye-opener reminds us that when we talk about that thing called the brick wall, when you're just there and going at it, you feel like the same thing over and over, that it really is time to just take a few steps back and see if you can go around it or another way.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, that there's no better way to start a Monday morning knowing the challenges you have ahead to be able to put that into perspective.
Excellent.
Right. So that is our eye-opener for today, and now we're going to find out what our weather is like. We have Catherine Cumberbatch on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, Marlene and it's Sunny. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today? Hello? Hello? Catherine, you're still with us?
Hello.
Yes, Catherine.
Yes, yes, I'm hearing you now. I'm hearing you now.
Thank you. All right, so tell us about our weather for today.
Okay. Our weather forecast for the next 24 hours, you could expect sunny skies with a few cloudy spells, and the high temperatures for today will reach 87 along the coast, 93 inland, and 82 in the hills. As for tonight, the skies will become partly cloudy to cloudy at times, and the low temperatures will drop to 81 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 74 inland, and 66 in the higher elevation. As pertains to shower activity will be generally isolated during the day, but tonight and tomorrow morning, expect a few more showers and isolated thunderstorms to develop mainly over the southern areas of the country. The winds will be coming out of the east at 5 to 15 knots, and the sea state will be choppy. And the outlook for Tuesday and Tuesday night is for cloudy spells with a few showers and thunderstorms developing mainly along the coast during the day, and then these activities will increase during the night and spread to most areas of the country, and this will be associated with the passage of a tropical wave. In the sargassum forecast, the chance of sargassum mass affecting our beaches during the next few days will continue to remain moderate to high. In the tropical weather outlook, for the North Atlantic, the Caribbean Sea, and the Gulf of Mexico, no tropical cyclone formation is expected during the next 48 hours. And that's it.
All right. So we got a tropical wave passing through tomorrow. Is it going to be bringing a lot of rain for a number of days?
Yes, not great amount of rain, but you should see an increase in the moisture from that system.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that update.
You're welcome.
Have a great day.
Have a pleasant day and stay safe.
All right, you too. There you
So
go.
don't get too comfortable with the sun out there. It's hot though. I think we'll all appreciate the break with the cool rains.
Yeah.
All right, but of course that takes care of your motivation for this morning and of course our weather update. And it is time for us now to take a look at the big news coming out from the weekend. And of course we know the first thing is to look at the UDP recall vote that took place on Sunday. So we're going to shift gears into Eye on the News.
So there were some 400 and some odd delegates from across the country, all members of the United Democratic Party, that converged on the Bird's Isle yesterday to participate in a recall convention. It's arguably the first in the history of Belizean politics where members of one party were being brought out to vote as to whether or not they want their existing leader to stay in place or to have him removed. The build-up, I guess, everyone is by now aware of what has transpired in the party that led to yesterday. It was one of those situations where it can be argued to an extent that this was, on one hand, based on what should have been an ethical consideration, and on the other hand, it can also be argued that this was the manifestation of perhaps several other issues that came to a head and it may have been the proverbial straw that brought the camel's back. Nonetheless, the results are in, and Patrick Farber, the era representative for Colette, and a 5-time era representative at that, retains his seat as the party leader of the United Democratic Party. And Shine Barrow, the Mesopotamia era representative, who is still fairly a newcomer in the political scene, is the opposition leader. Now, yesterday, as I mentioned earlier, you had delegates pouring in from all over, north, south, east, and west, our constituencies within. And we were able to get a feel of what was happening on the ground based on our conversations with some of the area representatives, our conversations with the chairman of the United Democratic Party as well. What I want to do first and foremost, Marlene, and before we actually go to Chairman Perfeet with the results, is to look at the interview that was done with Tracy Tager from the Albert constituency. At the parliamentary level, one would recall that she did not necessarily participate in the vote of no confidence that led to the removal of Patrick Farber as the opposition leader and the replacement with Shine Barrow. So yesterday, while at the convention, we were able to get a few answers from her in respect of that decision and what informed her position to not participate or to abstain from that vote of no confidence. So we'll begin with that.
Why is it that you decided to abstain from this petition that kind of set off this whole thing?
I've said it before and I will say it again. There are legally constituted organs of the party, and there's a constitution of the United Democratic Party. And I believe that it was important for us to work in accordance with the legally constituted committees of the party. That is the Central Executive and the National Party Council. And so for that reason, I decided that I would not participate at that level.
Can you also translate that to mean that you are in support of Mr. Farber's leadership?
No, you can't translate that to say anything other than I respect the Constitution of the United Democratic Party and I respect the legally constituted bodies of the United Democratic Party. I believe this should be strictly an internal matter. It's unfortunate that it has gone in the public domain, in my view. The party will sort itself out. We will reconcile. We will heal. We will unite, and we will rebuild, whatever happens today.
So while we can appreciate Tracy Panton's optimism, we're faced with a very real situation here where the party is still very much fragmented, right? And so whether or not or how quickly that healing and that reunification takes place will be one for us to be carefully looking at, Marlene.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think let's look at the speed. This has been less than a month since all of this has taken place. It was June 17th that the petition for the recall was delivered to the UDP headquarters with much fanfare. In fact, you know, I think there was much speculation that it was going to take place. At that time, I think they delivered close to 300 signatures saying that they wanted to go, they made a petition that they wanted to have this recall vote that took place yesterday because they felt that they lost confidence in party leader and then leader of the opposition, Patrick Farber. And then shortly after that, we saw within the elected representatives where a letter was sent to the Governor General and Patrick Farber was in fact removed as leader of the opposition, then making place for Shine. So we're talking less than a month. All of this has taken place to this point where now Patrick Farber has been able to safely remain as the leader of the party, but still not as the leader of the opposition within the House of Representatives.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about that is that, as alluded to by the chairman of the party, there is still a national convention for leadership that is looming. So while a majority of the delegates voted to have Faber removed, he only needed the 1/3 threshold to retain his seat. And so he was successful in that. But in the broader scheme, you know, what does this mean going ahead? Is it that those people who voted against him will maintain their position the next time around, or would he have sufficient time to kind of persuade them, to kind of convince them that he remains a person for the job as a leader of the party?
You know, and let's not forget that this entire incident was triggered by a domestic violence situation, an issue that has plagued Mr. Faber for a long time, but it was documented on video, and a video was released where an outburst, he had an outburst with the mother of his child, and it therefore became the catalyst for all the action that we've seen. Now, I think because we've been reporting on this for so long, this was really just one issue, because it has been seen in previous conventions that there are a number of people within the United Democratic Party that don't want Mr. Faber as their leader, and this became the perfect opportunity to trigger these actions. Now, going back to it, though, I think in the past 2 weeks, what has been interesting is that there was an active campaigning that was taking place. We saw images of Faber moving throughout the country. He said he wanted to meet the different delegates and convince them to keep him as the party leader. We saw flyers being distributed, at least online, talking about vote yes, vote no. We saw Shine Barrow putting out information as well as to why people should vote no. And we saw the campaign for Faber going with yes. So this was, you know, a hotly contested race and a very small margin as well.
Yeah, he was able to hold on by a very slim margin. One of the things that I wanted to also mention while we're here is that yesterday during the convention, we saw former Prime Minister Dean Barrow as a delegate himself. He was able to attend. His sister, who replaced him in the Queen Square constituency, Sister B, was also there, right? And there were several other members of the family, including Shine himself, who acted in a sense as a chauffeur, you know, mobilizing and bringing, you know, delegates onto the scene for them to be able to participate in the vote. And so part of the speculation has been what, if any, has been the involvement of the previous party leader in all of what has been taking place, and the fact that his son emerges 7 months later as the leader of the opposition. So again, this is an interesting turn of events. You have one who remains in position, and you have another who, at the parliamentary level, is a leader of that particular opposition. Now let's go forward a little bit, Marlene, and jump into the actual results of the convention. Yesterday afternoon, after, you know, everyone was sort of biting their nails and waiting to see what would have become of Patrick Faber, the chairman of the party, Mike Perfeet, was able to share with the media the actual results of the 400 and some odd delegates who cast their ballot. So let's go to that interview.
483 delegates cast their vote. 226 said yes, they wanted the Honorable Patrick Faber to remain the leader of the United Democratic Party. And 257 said no, they don't want him to remain the leader of the party. The 226 is more than the 161, 162, 1/3 that was necessary for Mr. Faber to remain the leader of the UDP. And so therefore, with those numbers, the Honorable Patrick Faber remains the leader of the United Democratic Party. Today is the beginning of the process to sort things out and come together as one unified party. We will sort that out in the future going forward. There's another national convention due in the not too distant future, and they can decide then. But for the purposes of today, Mr. Faber needed 1/3 of those who appeared to vote for him, and he got his 1/3.
So how do you lead this party forward now in terms of bringing that sort of unity rebuilding that we see it desperately needs?
Well, that's a job for Mr. Faber. That's why he retained. Part of being retained today is bearing the responsibility to make sure that we move forward as a United Democratic Party, him along with the Honorable Shine Barrow as leader of the opposition in the House. I will reach out to all sides. No, that's my job, to reach out to all sides and have us sit down and chart a way forward. And I have no doubt that all the sides will be willing to participate, because all the sides are, no matter what, UDP.
It's a task for... You're dealing with personalities, Marlene. Let's be clear on that. You're dealing with very strong personalities, and to some extent, ego plays a role in all of what has happened here. So it'll be sort of a monumental task to bring all parties to the table and have them pretty much put aside their differences for the greater good of one singular movement.
You know, as an outsider looking in, I think yesterday's results actually makes the task ahead for rebuilding even more challenging. You know, the somewhat easier but perhaps more embarrassing result would have been had Faber lost. Then they would have been looking at voting for a new leader moving forward. But now it is a matter of being able to resolve the issue that has led them to this point. But what I think is interesting, if we could go back for a moment, are the numbers. So at the time of the petition for the recall, there were 290 signatures.
Yeah.
Yesterday, those who voted no, which means these are the people who don't want or saying that they didn't want Patrick Faber to continue as leader, it was only 257.
Yeah.
So it means a number of people who signed the petition didn't actually vote no, or all of them didn't participate in yesterday's convention. Now, even if they did, it wouldn't have been enough had Mr. Faber pulled out the numbers, which he did. So
he needed 161, and he was fairly above
226, yeah. But I think the margin for the no vote to have been the 66% would have been about 60 people that needed to come in and vote. The point is, the results are what they are, but one of the things I did notice that the number of people who did sign the signature originally, the petition didn't actually, the numbers don't equal those who voted no at yesterday's convention. So either those people didn't come out, or those people perhaps were convinced that it was not the best move at this time.
Well, numerically, if you look at it, if they had 290 in the first instance to trigger the recall convention, and they were at 257 at the actual convention itself, you're looking at a difference of 33 people who, for whatever reason, either voted no or abstained, or whatever the case may have been,
yes,
or voted yes.
Yeah.
Right? So the point is, there were 33 delegates short of the initial list that triggered the recall.
So the biggest question I think that has to be answered is, where do they go from here? Are they going to continue in the current situation that they are, where they'll have a party leader who is in the House of Representatives and is not the leader of the opposition, and how long that will proceed?
Well, we can use that as a segue now to go into Patrick Faber's interview following the results yesterday.
Well, I'm happy, of course, of the results. I would have hoped for a larger margin, of course, but it's not just the bare minimum either, you know, 220 something when we only required 160 odd, I think, is indeed very much convincing for me. And given that everybody knows that these odds are stacked against me because of the way the delegates were selected originally, in some constituencies, I think this is a damn good showing, and so I'm proud of the results, and I'm happy that I get to continue to be the leader of a great party.
So do you expect to be reinstated as leader of the opposition?
Well, I'll work on that. That's a matter for my parliamentary colleagues, but of course I'm going to now try to ensure that that happens. I think the vast majority of people in our party, the masses, but also the wider population of Belize, believes that I'm the best person to be the leader of the opposition. I think that is very clear from all that has been said in the mainstream, but also in social media. People are not happy of the situation that was happening with a new leader of the opposition, and so I'm going to do my best now that I have regained, or people have re-endorsed me as the leader of the party, to ensure that I regain my position as leader of the opposition as well.
How do you move forward with rebuilding the party? What's the next step?
Well, firstly, we will have to work at the unity, and I want people to be clear that unity means that we're going to work with those who, of course, are interested in working in unity, you know. There are some who may feel that my victory today will cause them to not want to move on, and if they absolutely feel that they can't work with me, I'd hope that they'd walk away, so that we're able to embrace those who are serious about rebuilding the party. And for me, it is that I am willing to embrace anybody who is serious about working for this party and moving this party forward, and that does mean a new direction. I think that anybody who still has their head buried in the sand and believes that the people of this country did not send a very loud and clear message to the UDP that it needs to change, that it can't be the same old from pre-November 2011, then we would have missed the boat.
There are several lessons to take away from all of this, Marlene. If we were to kind of, you know, summarize what has taken place over the past several weeks, one of the primary lessons that I look to, and I would acknowledge here, is the fact that one's reputation in terms of either issues that have plagued him in the past, when you're in the public life, those never go away. So people can always go back and say, but you have been characterized as this kind of person in your past, and so that in itself can have a bearing on how confident you are in that person representing the image of the organization. I think that's one lesson that one can safely say, yes, this has happened. The other is, when you look at what has taken place, there's a clear division within the party. There's serious work to be done for them to be able to rebuild and for them to be a formidable opponent, considering the fact that there are only 5 in the House of Representatives, largely outnumbered by the ruling party. What time do they have now to be able to bring themselves together and present themselves as a viable option, either at the next municipal elections, which is in a shorter space of time than the general elections? The point is, there are all of these things that are taking place that are bubbling below the radar, so to speak, that needs to be addressed ahead of them being able to present themselves as the option.
I don't know if it's bubbling under the radar. You know, by the end of the day yesterday, both Shine Barrow and John Saldivar still called for Faber to resign. I think Barrow pointed out that the majority had voted against him remaining as leader, and Saldivar did the same. And I think, you know, Faber said something really telling in that interview, where he acknowledges that there are some people who perhaps will not work with him to be able to get the unity of the party going again. He knows that he has his detractors. He knows that this entire, and clearly by the fact that he is even up for a recall vote on Sunday, he knows the challenges that lie ahead. It's not an easy path ahead for them. And I think it is, I always say this when we have this conversation, because we can't get it lost, the strength of the opposition is important toward democracy. It is important that we have a strong opposition in place, and so whatever takes place internally in the UDP, whatever P you are, or if you're the growing majority of no P, it still is critical that we see resolution take place there and a move forward, so they can focus on national issues rather than party issues.
Well, and that's the thing, and I'm glad you raised that, because it's a rather important point to touch on. If it's only 5 of you in the House of Representatives and there's infighting, then you can't put forward a strong show of opposition at that level when down below the masses are bickering and your faith as leader is being tested, you know? So it doesn't bode well for the kind of democracy that we need at this point in our history.
And, you know, you mentioned earlier, of course, the personal issues that Faber has had to fight the image issue that he has faced. And recently, we've seen him talking about seeking therapy and working on anger management. You know, this is a very common thing we see, especially with celebrities and politicians in the U.S. They get caught with something bad, they go to therapy or rehab, and he is doing the same. And I don't discount the fact that mental health services are extremely helpful to many people who don't even think they need it. So will that be perhaps a turning point for him? Will he perhaps learn a different approach on how to unite the party? But let's be real, you know, to have faced what he faced yesterday and fight for his survival, it's not easy to let those bad feelings go.
Yeah.
It's not. And especially when we see at the end of the day that there still is a call for his resignation, because now they're saying, well, the majority voted no. It's not going to be easy to put the hurt and the egos aside to be able to rebuild, but they must, or they will continue with this
tailspin.
With this format of a separate leader of the opposition from the party leader.
Yeah. So that was the main conversation that we had for the Eye on the News this morning. Most certainly, this story will be fleshed out in its entirety at 6 o'clock. I do want to take the moment as well to acknowledge my colleague Paul Lopez, who did an excellent job yesterday in being able to bring our viewers on social media the play-by-play of what transpired at Birdsall. So thanks again, Paul, for being able to assist in that regard. So these stories and more, at 6 o'clock you can catch us on News 5 Live, you can catch us on Facebook or YouTube, where we'll be giving you the full scope of what has transpired with the UDP and, of course, all other stories over the weekend.
That's right. With that, we're going to get moving into our conversation for today. And speaking of national issues, there's a lot going on as well. Today, we are going to be exploring from a regional perspective the legalization of marijuana. And so we have joining us a very renowned professor from the University of West Indies in Jamaica. He's been doing extensive research on cannabis, and he's going to be talking about some of the findings that he's found over the years of his research, and also where Jamaica is now after they had shifted their legislation in 2015. So we have Dr. Wayne McLaughlin joining us live via Zoom after the break.
And since that's going to be a two-part conversation, then our third segment will be the Belize Botanical Garden, since we're keeping things horticultural, Marlene. So we're going to have two guests that are going to be joining us as well to discuss the upcoming horticulture training in Belize. So that constitutes our third segment.
All right, we're going to take that break then, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of legalizing marijuana and what the latest research is saying today. That's coming up in a few.
That with Smart, you get truly unlimited everything. Only with Smart, you get unlimited data anytime. While with the other guy, it's only double data on weekends. With unlimited data every day with Smart, there's no need to wait. So, it's a fact that our unlimited plans beat the competition. Stop being measured and told when to use your data and get unlimited talk, text, and data. Experience the true unlimited plans with Smart. That's a fact. Make the switch and live smart.
Good morning, sweetie. It's time for school.
Are you a teacher or public sector employee who is thinking of owning your new home? Get the keys to your new home with Belize Bank's all-inclusive mortgage, the best financing option in Belize for your new home purchase or construction. Inclusive of all mortgage-related fees, no down payment, affordable terms, amazingly low interest rates. Visit our nearest branch to speak to one of our financial advisors to discuss how you can be one step closer to owning your new home. Some conditions apply.
Introducing Edam A cheese, the A+ Dutch cheese to hit the Belizean market. As the name says, it is of A-class quality, the best Dutch cheese in Belize. Edam A cheese is creamier, less salty, and simply more delicious. Don't be left out. Get your A cheese at a supermarket near you. A cheese, exclusively distributed by Unitex Company Limited. Call us at 610-3626 or 610-8910. Follow us on Facebook at Unitex Belize.
Whether you're at home, on the road, at work, or at school, if you see news happening or suspect that something might be up, call or text the Channel 5 News Belize tip line at 672-5555. You don't have to give us your name, just give us the tip. That's 672-5555. Call or text us so we can check it out.
Welcome back. As Marlene mentioned just before we took our first commercial break, our conversation, the first conversation of the morning, will be with Dr. Wayne McLaughlin. He's a professor at the UWI Mona campus in Jamaica. And our discussion this morning is about all things marijuana, from the legalization to all other aspects of the trade, the consumption, etc. That being said, good morning, Dr. Wayne.
Good morning. Morning.
This is a broad topic that we're embarking upon this morning, but I want to begin first of all by getting from you a feed as to what has been the effect of the legalization process in Jamaica. I know that Jamaicans are proponents for marijuana, and recently you guys had also, kind of dealt with your amendments and your laws to be able to allow for consumption and trade. What has that been like there in terms of either a precedent being set or the overall scenario?
Yeah, morning again. Morning to your viewers. Mm-hmm. Well, as you know, Jamaica has been growing cannabis for a long time. And I use the word cannabis rather than marijuana for specific reasons. But for a very, very long time, we have been cultivating cannabis, illegally, of course. But in 2016, that changed, and it was decriminalized, not not legalized. So that's again a key difference. And the decriminalization basically allowed the cultivation and specifically for use as a medicinal plant. So the other area is that the religious use has also been approved, for the Rastafarians. So that's a two-prong that they introduced in 2016. So since then, of course, we have had quite a bit of interest from all over the world in how we can basically get involved in this cannabis industry, building out the industry. So it's really an industry, but coming with that, of course, are the key regulations. Yes. So building on that, of course, we had to put in regulations for the cultivation, the handling, transporting, processing, distribution, as in setting up dispensaries. So it really involved quite a bit. So it's a business. Don't forget now, it's really a business.
Yeah.
Many places in the world, of course, as you know, the US, Canada has legalized it fully. US in some states have legalized it fully, but for both recreational and medicinal use. And of course, Germany, some countries in the EU, UK, using it medicinally. So we are basically now trying to build the industry. So it's an industry. Yeah. And getting to that stage, of course, we have to consider health benefits, what it can be used for, how the doctors are to be trained. So it involves a lot. So it's a real industry, as I say. It's not just growing cannabis in the field and somebody go and use it.
Yes.
Quality is important, right? So coming with that, we have also looked at regulations to manage the quality of the product.
And that's where I wanted to kind of, if I could just interject here before we lose the opportunity. Professor, you have been involved in cannabis research long before the legislative changes. In fact, you were the co-chair of the UWI Medicinal Cannabis Research Group, and you've been within the labs looking at the difference between the cannabis grown in different parts of Jamaica, and especially honing in on some of the particular uses that people can benefit from. Let's just talk about some of the highlights. It's been over a decade of research that you're looking at.
Even before that, the University of the West Indies in Mona, of course, has been doing quite a bit. The late Professor Manley West, he was in the pharmacology department at that time, was the first to develop a medicinal product from cannabis, and that was used for glaucoma. Okay. Right? So that has been on the market for many years in pharmacies. And following that, he developed another one for asthma. It's called Asthmasol, again from the cannabis product. Then there was a lapse, of course. Not much happened in between, his discovery work, and so then we started back in 2010. So my lab basically started back in 2010, where we started to look at the types of cannabis we had in Jamaica, and this involved collecting material from all over, Jamaica, doing a lot of the characterization in terms of the genetics, looking at the levels of THC, CBD, looking at the levels of terpene, because that's important for you to have a database to see what you have. And then at that time, though, between 2010 and 2016, we weren't allowed to grow, but we could do all the other genetics work, all the chemical work. But when 2016 came, then we were able to cultivate. So we now have set up, of course, a laboratory with greenhouses that can actually grow the plant, and then we can look at the phenotypes. As you know, there are many different strains of cannabis. There have been many interbreeding, crossbreeding, which is what we have found in our work. So, for example, we could trace back cannabis all the way from the western end of Jamaica. Say, well, if you know Jamaica, it's like if you go to Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, which is in the west central, we could trace the cannabis coming from those countries using genetic markers. So that's some of the work we have been doing. also, very interestingly, when we started out, because of, as you know, the illegal trade, one of the things we wanted to know is that if an airplane landed in Miami containing cannabis, if we can say it actually originated from Jamaica. So that was part of the work we're doing early in terms of tracing our cannabis. And yes, we're able to do that in terms of genetic markers. So we do have a good database. Along with that, now we have developed different combinations of strains with different levels of THC, which we'll come back to later. THC, which is the psychoactive component of the cannabis, then CDB, and then we would have strains with high THC, some strains with high CDB, some strains with equal amounts of THC and CDB, and vice versa, you know, high amounts of CDB and low amount of THC, because each component, of course, is very critical in terms of its use. Then on top of that, you have the terpenes, which is what you actually smell. You know, that smell that you know when cannabis is around. Really because of the terpenes. And cannabis is one of those unique plants that has a whole range of terpenes. So for example, if you think of mango, that smell you get from mango is because it has the terpene myrcene. Typically, you'll find other crops will have single or one type of terpenes, like lemons would have limonene. But what you find with cannabis, which is very interesting, it has a whole range of terpenes, different combinations. And so you have different cannabis will give you different smell, different aromas.
Okay.
That is rather also interesting also with cannabis, because the terpenes do play a key role in enhancing the other properties. So for example, limonene or say myrcene will make you relax. So if you have a cannabis with high myrcene and high CDB actually also helps you to relax. So that sort of combinations we're looking at, and of course there are different uses in treating cancer, epilepsy, as we mentioned,
asthma and
go ahead.
No, I was going to say that there's quite a bit to unpack there. So a few things that you did mention, where the science is now looking at how the individual components in the cannabis can in fact provide different results, especially when you're talking about medicinal use. So if you're talking about asthma, pain management, glaucoma, anxiety, you know, I know in some of the countries where the industry is more developed, they now create products specifically for different effects based on altering CBD and THC levels. So they're already there, and here we're still, and I'll say here for Belize, we're still at an earlier point, and I want to get your perspective in here, Professor. We're still at the point where we're trying to move away from vilifying cannabis itself before we can move to, I mean, the laws may progress if it's passed through the House, but there still is a perception that has to be changed. Let's talk about your experience with that, especially since you are diving into the science and you understand more than most how it affects people and their minds and their bodies.
Yes, you know, well, as I said, it's stigmatized, which is true. It's gonna take a while to get over that, but believe it or not, a lot of persons use cannabis, right? Not openly, of course, because of the whole stigma associated with it, but it's something that we'll have to, in terms of education, you know, letting people know that it's not just, you know, the psychoactive part of it, but the other properties are really, really important medicinally. And it has been used traditionally for centuries. You're talking about centuries, right? Not just today. And that has been discovered by, you know, our forefathers of the different medicinal properties. You know, anxiety, as you just mentioned, insomnia, people who are anorexic, properties where they just can't eat, so it opens your appetite. For pain management, reducing pain. So again, it goes back to the different strains, as I mentioned. And as you said, different countries will have gone more advanced in terms of what they have done to develop strains to deal with specific medical issues. And that is where we are getting to, actually. So to build the industry, as you just mentioned, you're at the rudimentary stages, is really to put in the facilities to allow, to explore those medicinal properties, laboratory facility for, testing. That is going to be important. The quality is going to be important, because if you're going to be giving persons with medical issues, you don't want to give them cannabis that's contaminated, with spores or with other chemical.
I want to hear more about that, because we did have a consultant who once joined us and is very involved in this process locally. And he spoke of the poor, now, nobody wants to hear bad things about their own product, but he was saying that tests done with marijuana that he's gotten in Belize were unhealthy, that there are things like mold and other things involved, and spores. So can you shed some light on that? Is that fact, and what are the consequences of that?
So as you delve in the cultivation process, it's not just growing the plant outside. It involves a lot of management. Okay. Because I guess
okay, we have a bit of a freeze there. Professor, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Yes.
We just lost you for about 10 seconds. Go ahead.
Right. I'm just saying, in terms of the cultivation process, it's an art and it's a science, because the end product have to be of good quality. And how do you get to that good quality? Crop management. So from harvesting, it has to be dried properly at the proper humidity, at the proper temperature, because you don't want to have molds growing in the final product. So outside, because our environment is quite humid.
Yes.
Okay? So that has to be a challenge. So it has to be dried to a certain percentage, 10% moisture. So that has to be done in a cool environment, with good air exchange, not more than 24 degrees C or 22 degrees C. And that will, of course, minimize the possibility of molds. Now, these molds can be dangerous, because quite a few of them may have what are called toxins. And those toxins, of course, can kill, or at some, cause persons to become ill. So the quality is key. Now, for us, of course, we have a lot of sunshine. Okay? In the US and Canada, they depend on growing indoors, so the quality control is much better. But even growing indoors or in greenhouses, that can be managed. That level of quality can be managed.
So let me ask you a question here, Doc, if I can quickly. Yeah. I don't know that there's that kind of strict quality control when it comes to the person who is selling cannabis loosely in a retail sense. Yeah. So is it to say then that what is being consumed locally is subject to these very toxins that you're discussing?
Exactly, because how it is prepared, how it is harvested, how it is dried, how it is stored. For example, you have to have a relatively cool environment to store the cannabis in. And that does not for just keeping the molds out, but also to maintain the levels of the cannabinoids that are present. If you store it at a temperature that's too high, hot environment, for example, it's gonna lose the cannabinoids like CBD, it's gonna lose terpenes, it's gonna lose, because the terpenes are very volatile, because it's gonna lose THC. So you don't want to have that, level of, poor quality.
So what your research has shown, and what you are in fact, I think, being able, we've kind of heard that coming out from the beginning conversations here, that there has to be control mechanisms put in place for people who will supply or distribute.
Yes, has to.
Let's step back to the basics though, because we did talk a bit about the stigma. That will take some time for people to be able to shift. But there are valid concerns. If you have never used cannabis and you've only seen images or explanations of persons who are high, who somehow seem to not be functioning at full capacity, whether a bit slow or lethargic or spaced out, that's your assumption as to what this drug does to everyone. So let's talk about the effects, and let's talk about potential damage to individuals who use. What does the research say?
Right. So what we're looking at basically in different strains is the level of THC. Yes. That is the psychoactive component. Yes. I know traditionally, the levels of THC has increased over the years. So normally from, the traditional cultivations, you'd find a THC level of, say, 5% on average. That is what we found. But you'll have breeders who are very much interested in developing or breeding strains that would be up to 20% THC. Now, that is the strain that basically now will give you that high. And if you smoke cannabis, it gives you that high very, very quickly. So it's absorbed through the blood, pass through the blood-brain barrier to the brain, and that is what gives you the high.
Okay.
That is what we have to be careful of. As you say, as a new user, again, you have to know the concentration of the THC. Yeah. So that is what is going to be key in terms of its medicinal value.
So it's like when people have 1 drink versus 5 drinks.
Right, exactly. So you have to know your as a naive, user, you have to know what levels you're going to be starting off with. Mm-hmm. One of the recommendations is that you start low, and then you measure the effect, as you increase the amount or the intake of cannabis.
What about the fact that people call it a gateway drug?
It hasn't really been found. Publications really haven't found that, in terms of it being a gateway drug. Mm-hmm. It really separate that concept of being a gateway drug. It's not like heroin where you get addicted, or cocaine where you get addicted.
That was going to be my next question. What is the addiction rate to marijuana?
For the publications, we have basically looked at compared to heroin or cocaine, it's really low on this, very low on the scale. Mm-hmm. So if it's 100, a scale of 100, and you have cocaine, heroin, not that, it's probably down to about 20%.
Yeah. Okay. And what about physical or mental damage due to the drug?
Right. So again, what we encourage, of course, is that if you're below the age of 18, younger, your brain still developing, so that is where the education comes in. You really have to educate the population, educate the young persons to avoid the use of cannabis, because it can have effect on the development of the brain. For example, pregnant women, you wouldn't encourage pregnant women to use cannabis, even though they do. So this is some of the things you really have to educate our population on.
Talk to us about the social impact since the decriminalization process in Jamaica. I know that here in Belize, the argument from the churches, for instance, they're saying, well, look, when we look around, it's a majority of young people that are consuming, and these are the persons who are not completing school, who are engaged in crime and violence and that sort of stuff.
Well, as with most crime, there are other social issues that one has have to also take in consideration. You know, opportunities, other opportunities. You know, not just the fact that they are involved in crime, but other things will deter people from going the crime, the criminal direction. And it also will be the same with cannabis. Again, education, finding other opportunities, that will help. Because again, with papers, our colleague psychiatrists at Mona here, they really haven't seen any major increase in crime caused from people using cannabis.
Doctor, tell us about, from your perspective, the conversation about decriminalization or legalization of marijuana has been around for a long time, and we're starting to see some of the changes. For the more developed countries to have made this step first, I don't know if that perhaps is part of our impetus or, but the bigger picture is, I know you have spoken out publicly in Jamaica about how lucrative the business can be if the country would allow itself to open up for legalization. Tell us your thoughts on that. Do you think the Caribbean is lagging behind?
Well, we are. We have been. As you know, as Jamaica has been involved in cannabis cultivation for many years, but there are opportunities still. We haven't, as you say, missed the boat completely.
Okay.
We really should have been further afield. The other aspects of how the industry, as it can develop, looking at medical tourism, for example. In the Caribbean area, we have a lot of tourists that come to the different parts of the Caribbean. I would imagine about half of those persons that come use cannabis for medicinal use. And if they come to Jamaica, to Belize, to Antigua, for example, just recently legalized and started their first farm, just about 2 weeks ago. It can open up quite a bit. And remember, it's not just the cannabis alone that is going to benefit, not just the cannabis industry alone that's going to benefit, because you're going to have spin-off. For example, persons who design greenhouses, agronomists, different labs, different processing, to develop new products, so it's gonna spin off into many other different, industries, tourism, for example, it could spin off into tourism. So the opportunities are I say really great, but I say we have to we're actually trying to catch up now, basically.
Okay, Professor, so what I want to do is find out more about what it's been like since the changes in the legislation in Jamaica to today. But we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about some of the similarities that we have with our new proposed legislation, and also what the effects have been like there in Jamaica. We'll tackle that after the break, so viewers, please stay tuned.
Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
worked hard your whole life building your future, your family, your business, your home. And when you aren't around to safeguard your most beloved assets, you are at ease because you know they are protected by RF&G Insurance. For over 50 years, RF&G has been making sure business owners get back to work after an accident, and families get back into their homes quickly after a natural disaster. At RF&G, it's you who matters most. Visit us today and learn why it pays to get it right. RF&G Insurance, a Rowe Group company.
Infinite Health presents Common Sense Herbs, everything your body needs, and are all natural, dairy-free, non-GMO, cruelty-free, gluten-free, and are FDA monitored. Everything your body needs. Distributor in Belize, Infinite Health, Birds Isle, Belize City. Telephone number 613-1914. That's 613-1940.
Good morning, sweetie. It's time for school.
Are you a teacher or public sector employee who is thinking of owning your new home? Get the keys to your new home with Belize Bank's all-inclusive mortgage, the best financing option in Belize for your new home purchase or construction. Inclusive of all mortgage-related fees, no down payment, affordable terms, amazingly low interest rates. Visit our nearest branch to speak to one of our financial advisors to discuss how you can be one step closer to owning your new home. Some conditions apply.
Right now, the vaccine trials do not show where the COVID vaccine makes any pre-existing conditions worse. In fact, persons with preconditions, medical conditions, that mean that if they get the disease, they are more likely to get a severe disease and are at risk of death. Persons who are obese, have chronic lung problems, cardiovascular disease, kidney disease, or any other serious disease, they are protected from developing the complications of severe COVID. So it is better to take the vaccine even if you have medical comorbidities or preconditions.
We are back and we continue our conversation with Professor Wayne McLaughlin from the UWI Mona campus in Jamaica. So, Professor McLaughlin, we were about to begin discussing the legal aspect in terms of the legislative changes that occurred in Jamaica in 2016 and what that framework included. Can you jump in at this point to kind of share with us an overview of what that process was like and what has taken place in the 5 years since then?
Okay, good. As part of my other portfolio is that I'm also a member of the Cannabis Licensing Authority.
Okay.
So, of Jamaica. So we basically, again, it's highly regulated. So cannabis is still a regulated product. Even though it's decriminalized, or in some countries it may be, fully legalized, but it's still regulated because, as you know, different conventions, of course, still are enforced that prevents, the export and other just general use of cannabis or cultivation. So what was basically set up was a licensing authority, which is the Cannabis Licensing Authority, and they are basically the regulators. So for a person to get in the business, you have to have a license. So you have to get a license for cultivation, or if you want to process, you have to get a license for processing, for transport, for setting up a dispensary, or what we call a smokehouse. Persons can go and purchase, cannabis and use it in that property. So it's fully regulated, and at each step, each applicant have to go through a really rigorous process in terms of, security checks, and which can take, weeks, months sometimes to get a license in place. And of course, it's not cheap. Getting a license is not cheap. So that has been one of the bugbears or challenges we have had in Jamaica, where, the traditional farmers,
yes,
and we hope that Belize will look at that in their legislation, where the traditional farmers are really a part of this process. We are not.
That is the core of one of the concerns that we have here in Belize. Whether or not this move in creating an industry for cannabis will in fact box out those who've been making a living from it for so long.
Well, part of what we have looked at is called an alternative development program, which basically try to get the traditional farmers up in Akampong, which is the maroon areas, different areas in Westmoreland that have been cultivating cannabis for years, for them to come as a group. So you'd have to look at something like a co-op, because it's not, as I said, it's to put up just a 10,000 square feet greenhouse. You have to put in security fence, security cameras, hire security guards, systems that will monitor it from, remote monitoring. So it's not cheap. So we have this in place, and we are really still struggling with it in some, aspects, of course. But getting the traditional farmers, involved is going to be important.
So from a legal perspective, were there any allowances or accommodations made for the person who do the hand-to-hand retail? While we're looking at the farming aspect of it, was there any, leeway given to people who were making a living from the sale of marijuana at the retail level?
Technically, no. But you're allowed to have 52 grams, 2 ounces for personal use. But it is still illegal to sell, as by the street side, but it's sort of overlooked. It's not really something that is, if you have more, of course, they're going to think that you're really in
trafficking or trade,
You also allow for household plants. I think in Jamaica it's up to 5 household plants.
Regulation again allows for each person in the household to have 5 plants. So if you have 10 persons in the household,
you can have 50 plants.
Oh, okay.
Right, so you are allowed 5 plants each.
Let me ask you something here again, Doc, because perhaps I'm totally naive where cultivation and production is concerned. What would be the quantity that one can get from 5 plants?
Okay, so you can get up to, let me see, we can, from 1 plant, we can get probably up to 100 grams sometimes per harvest. Right, so you can get quite a bit. You definitely can get more than the 50, the 2 ounces. Definitely you can. But again, that has to be kept in the private property. It's like you can go to the street side, set up like a shacker, side of the house, outside. So that would be legal. And this is where the dispensaries come in now. So there are legal dispensaries, which basically do sell cannabis and cannabis products. So how it is done now, you have to get not really a prescription, but a recommendation from a medical doctor
to go to the dispensary.
Right, to go to the dispensary for it to be prescribed. So most of the dispensaries do have their own doctors, basically. And some do it remotely, so you don't have to have a doctor sitting at the dispensary, so the patient and the doctor can be done remotely.
That's interesting. Where is the medical community? And I'm sure maybe UE, because they train doctors as well. Where are we in getting the medical community engaged in the conversation? Because if a doctor is giving a prescription, they have to see the value in the medicinal.
Right. Yeah. Yes, that is so true. That is so true. Again, you know, because of our tradition of westernized medicine, you know, it's not fully in the curriculum, you know, in terms of even the cannabinoid system. You know, we have an endocannabinoid system.
Yeah.
All of us, right? Because it functions in many, many different ways, right? So cannabis is an exocannabinoid, meaning that you take in that you know, to enhance, you know, different functions and properties. But that part of it, what we do offer is CMEs for the, you know, for training for doctors. So that's again part of the whole process that you really have to involve the doctors and get them trained. And there are quite a few who dispense and use cannabis in their practice, right? Not to say, you know, you don't have any. So there are some that really uses it, especially for pain management.
Yeah.
You know? So, and
okay, so the biggest question, I guess, is looking at a part of the push in the legalization or kind of the formalization of marijuana or cannabis trade is looking at how it may impact crime, especially gang activity. 6 years later or 5 years later, what are the effects on crime in Jamaica?
Well, you know, again, we haven't really seen an increase related to cannabis, you know, in terms of crime, meaning that for, you know, gang war between, you know, generally, you know, trading or, you know, things like that. But we really haven't seen an increase in crime. But for those who export illegally, they're not going to stop exporting illegally, you know. So I don't think it's stopping that. But what it will do is that it could cut down on the amount of illegal cultivation where you get these people in the legal system. So that is one of the pluses that they're looking at in terms of reducing the amount of illegal cultivation and involving those people in the legal, you know, in the legal trade. But for crime itself, you know, related specifically to cannabis, we have really seen an increase in that.
Yeah.
Other drugs, you know, of course, you still see that because, you know, cocaine is still, you know, a big issue, you know, in terms of illegal involving gangs and so, you know, in terms
from a medical point of view here, what are some of the long-term effects of cannabis consumption, particularly for people who smoke marijuana? I know you have different kinds of rolling papers, right? And so some people would argue that smoking Fonto is perhaps more dangerous on the long term than other people who smoke bamboo, for instance, right? So how does that work on the long term?
Well, just to say, we don't encourage, as part of the regulation, encourage smoking. As you know, we have a law against smoking, so it's regardless of cigarette or, you know, cannabis. So in general, no smoking. But of course, some persons still smoke it because it offers a very quicker relief. Right? So that is the reason for smoking. It offers a quicker relief. It doesn't last long. The relief doesn't last long compared to if you use it as in an edible form. In an extract or oil. But the thing with the edible form, it takes a longer time for you to feel the effect. You know, so there's a trade-off there. So, but for the long-term use of, you know, use of cannabis by smoking, that can have, you know, health effects, just like smoking cigarettes. You know, so that's why it's discouraged. You know. So
Professor, I was going to say, in your years of experience in doing research and understanding more about benefits and challenges, I'm sure you've engaged in quite a few debates about whether or not legalization is the best way to go. What do you find, I mean, what is your approach to getting the information out so people can feel better informed as to whether it's a right or wrong move for a country like Belize?
Okay, so from my perspective, my opinion is, of course, it should be more from the medicinal use.
Yes.
Not the recreational, general use.
Yeah.
So that is my, thought as a scientist, of course, because, we try to make the best, of what we have. But persons are still gonna use it recreationally. Right? So that we can't avoid, right? So for the overall benefits, again, as I said, the industry is still new to us. This is something that we really should try to build, support from all angles, of course, from the government side, they have to put in support. And just to give an example, in Antigua, a new company had just their first cultivation license was granted. And part of that association was with the private company, with the government of Antigua, and the Rastafarian group. So it's a tripartite, agreement in terms of setting up this business. And so the government is involved, right? So this is something that I said from Belize's point, our aspect, looking at the traditional farmers, get them in groups, get them to be organized. And I said, they don't have all the cash to set up this thing, so they may put in labor, other assets, get the private company involved. And what we have done in Jamaica is that the business must be 51% owned by Jamaicans.
Okay.
So the majority shareholder in that company has to be Jamaican, 51%. So those are the things you could look at in terms of setting up, the industry in Belize. Try to make the ownership, Belizean.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Rather than foreign, business. Yeah. Because what had happened with us, we had a lot of companies coming from the US, Canada, pumping a lot of money, putting up these house, cultivation sites, everything. But there was no export. There are still countries there that would not accept cannabis from other countries. For example, in the US, you cannot export to Canada, except for research purposes. Right? They didn't see all of this, right?
Yeah.
So of course they spent all this money setting up, and now they have left, because they really didn't see the wider industry. But the US is opening up now, as you know. They have passed a couple of new legislation, so hopefully with the Biden administration, they may,
And that would make a huge difference, because that's a big challenge in looking at the regulatory system that has to be in place globally.
Yeah, banking is a big challenge.
Yeah, yeah.
Banking is gonna be a big challenge until the U.S. federal government, recognizes and approves it.
Yeah.
Right. So
do you think
banks will not accept or open an account for a cannabis company in Jamaica?
Professor, just before we close, since you have been you spent so many years working in a lab looking at the medicinal uses, potential medicinal uses for cannabis. We've seen where, very often things that we have been using traditionally in this part of the world, in fact, they become prominent in other countries. Somebody else comes out and says, turmeric is a miracle fruit, moringa is a miracle herb, and it takes off. And we don't necessarily take the lead on things we've been using traditionally for a long time. Looking at where you are with your cannabis research, what are some of the emerging areas that you think the Caribbean can really shine in putting forward as a potential use for cannabis?
Well, looking at it in general, the areas that we have been working on as the lab basically is on cancer, so like prostate cancer, we're looking at breast cancer. There's a very active research group in the pharmacology section in the Faculty of Medical Sciences, and they have shown some really excellent results in terms of treating prostate cancer. And again, not to say that THC is bad, because THC is really the active component that is really providing that anti-cancer property.
Okay.
Right? So again, the research is really key. So cancers is really key. Pain, I would say pain management, the arthritis, epilepsy, although all numbers of, epileptic persons are maybe not that high as in the US, but again, once the market can open up, we look at that opportunity. So the, anxiety, depression, those are some of the key areas. But the cancer is going to be one of the big areas.
Okay.
To look at, with great prospects.
Well, Professor, we are grateful to get a new perspective on the conversation about cannabis. And as we mentioned earlier, Belize is kind of just getting a start going in understanding more about where this can happen and where this can lead us. And Jamaica is 5 years in, so you add some great perspective there as to what's been taking place. Any final thoughts as we close?
Well, just to say that don't forget the traditional farmers, those that have been involved in cultivation for eons of years long before us, the industrial people and, the commercial side of it.
Okay.
So they're going to be key, because as I say, it's an art, and they have that art, in how to cultivate.
That's right.
This is where we as now, the technology will come in to make the product better.
That's right.
So it will involve both.
Thank you so much, Professor.
You're welcome.
All right. With that, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and we will be back talking about even more agricultural opportunities, this time horticulture training through the Belize Botanic Garden. That's coming up.
Easily unlock our phones and securely gain access to our data. This technology is called biometrics, and the Social Security Board is introducing fingerprint recognition to make transactions and handling of your sensitive data secure, fast, accurate, and convenient. Is your identity safe? Fingerprint recognition will keep your Social Security record secure and confidential while making your access fast and easy. It protects your identity. Is your name a common one? Fingerprint recognition uses your unique characteristics, ensuring your hard-earned benefits go directly to you, the rightful owner. Tired of all the paperwork? Fingerprinting makes this hassle-free. Your convenience and your information security is our priority. Fingerprint recognition coming soon. Social Security at your fingertips.
Smart continues to expand its internet coverage countrywide to help you live a smarter life.
Our villagers are very happy. They are pleased to know that Smart went the extra mile to put a tower in our village so that our villagers can get live stream on their TVs and they can get their kids doing their online classes. I want to say to Smart, thank you for making it possible for us to get internet in Gardenia Village. We really do appreciate it.
Smart continues to take the internet and mobile services to communities across Belize. Now save even more when you bundle your Smart broadband with Smart mobile services. Smart, bringing people together.
Why should you wear your mask? To protect myself. my friends, my family, and others. I wear my mask because I love my grandparents. With so many reasons to wear a mask, we continue to advise persons to wear a face mask properly, covering both nose and mouth. Together, we can keep Belize COVID-19 safe.
Dwayne Moody, Isani Cayetano, Andrea Polanco, Al Lopez. Your News 5 Belize teams do whatever it takes. Go wherever they need to go, so you can catch the story wherever you are, whenever you want, on whatever device. Channel 5 Belize on television, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Because news is now everywhere, all the time. And so are we.
Belize has the highest population of the Antillean manatee in the world, and we'd like to keep it that way.
The Sea to Shore Alliance and our partners have been fighting to protect our environment and these endangered manatees.
Each year, however, their death rate continues to increase rapidly due to watercraft collision, destruction of coastal habitat, entanglement in fishing gears, garbage pollution, and poaching. Yes, poaching.
These animals are in dire trouble and they need our help.
It's our responsibility as Belizeans to protect what belongs to us.
In order to create a safe environment and future for our aquatic friends, we must act now.
Respecting no-wake zones and manatee habitat is important.
Practice sustainable fishing methods and properly discard damaged fishing gear.
People throw garbage everywhere, except in the garbage can.
Garbage stops here.
When we safeguard important habitats such as mangroves, seagrass beds, the barrier reef, and our marine lives, we are safeguarding our livelihoods.
I want you to look after my future. What about me?
When I grow up, I want to see manatee.
We are asking for your support, and we thank you for recognizing the importance of manatees and their habitats.
Thank you for caring.
Big thank you from our aquatic friends.
I am a humanitarian.
I am a humanitarian.
We are humanitarians.
Protect. Protect. We protect.
We should protect our manatees.
We must protect them.
Protect what belongs to us.
Protect ours.
Protect your manatees, Belize.
And welcome back. Our final conversation of the morning is with our two friends from the Belize Botanic Gardens, and they're here to discuss horticultural training. We have with us the manager of the Belize Botanical Gardens, Rudy Aguilar. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
We also have with us a guide and a gardener, also from the Belize Botanic Gardens, Harry Mesh. Good morning, Harry.
Hi, hello.
Talk to us first of all about the Belize Botanic Gardens. Where is it located? What kind of work is it engaged in terms of everything that we need to know about botany?
Belize Botanic Garden is located on the Benka Road, almost reaching Sokots. On the left-hand side, there's the Chial Farms right there. You drive in about 4 miles, and there is Belize Botanic Garden. We are located right on the riverbank of the Macal River. So you practically drive until the road ends, and you have 45 acres there of native and introduced plants. Belize Botanic Garden mission is to study plants, promote the conservation of plants, and also teach how to work with plants, especially to our young people. We open from 7 to 4 every day. For the recent year, entrances to the garden have been affected because of the COVID-19 and traveling. There's not a lot of guests. But we still encourage Belizeans to travel to Belize Botanic Garden. We have discounted prices for Belizeans going to the garden. I'm going to ask, maybe Harry can explain a little bit about the tours we offer there.
Sure.
It's beautiful. The gardens are beautiful, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's 45 acres organically grown garden, so it's pretty huge, and we do site tours, on the 45 acres, and we offer regular tours as medicinal tours. Bird watching, when people ask for it, we also do bird watching. We do medicine tours along with tea tasting. We have our local tea that we will usually boil and serve with honey that we get.
I know fever grass. What other kind of teas are you doing?
Yes, we use fever grass, or what is mostly known as lemongrass, ginger, edible ginger.
Yeah.
Sometimes we would do from allspice leaves, we have jackass bitters, which most hate it, but we will do a little sample every now and then, when we do tours and as part of our tea tasting on the garden.
When we talk botany, are we also talking about flowering plants as part of the overall experience at the gardens?
Yes, well, the garden is, the collection there is more than 2,000 different plant species, so we have a wide range of different plants, from ornamentals to fruiting trees. We try to keep the garden's collection, by collecting different species that are endangered. So local plants, we have plenty of them, that we keep under our care, so that they don't go extinct. But when it comes to the garden, we do we do have accommodations for big groups also. We accept volunteers that will come to the garden and volunteer for us there at the gardens.
How do you manage all of that? I mean, we're talking 45 acres of plants. That's a huge expanse.
Yeah, well, right now we have a new staff member. We have a retired horse that they actually, got to retire at the garden, so it helps us a lot with the mowing. Besides that, we use weed whackers, riding mowers, to, manicure the area. Right?
Okay. Yeah. Now, you're offering a training program for Belizeans to learn more about horticulture.
Yes, and that's why we are here today. Because in 2011, 2012, we got help from the European Union to start a horticulture training program. Horticulture is anything that has to do with plants, care, growth. So we started the training in 2012, and it was geared towards unemployed Belizeans. And this was to improve unemployment in Belize, improve employment, in Belize, and encourage young people to work with plants. And we started off just focusing on the Cayo area, San Ignacio and the surrounding villages.
Yeah.
And I remember the first interview we did, we had people from Corozal way down to PG, ages 14 to 65. So we did the course for 3 years, free of cost, and we noticed that there was a huge demand for the training, and there was a lot of people, a lot of resorts, a lot of hotels asking for trained gardeners. So it was an area we were good at teaching and developing these workers and gearing them towards getting a job. So at the ending of the course, about 80% of the unemployed were employed, and some of them actually started their own business, whether it was nursery or plant nursery or land care business. So
it was a huge plus for us. So we decided that, because it was so positive, we decided that, we are to do it again. We're supposed to do it again. There are a lot of people asking for the training again. So we got a little bit of funding. The course is 10 weeks. All right. So it's Monday to Friday for 10 weeks. So the people taking the course has to commit to the 10 weeks from start to finish. All right.
And this is on site.
This is on site. Now we provide transportation from San Ignacio into the gardens, because from San Ignacio to the gardens is about 6-7 miles. All right. So we provide transportation from San Ignacio into the gardens, but then what we ask is for, if you need accommodation, then you need to sort it out, or food, you need to sort it out. In the previous training, we provided everything, but for this one, we would only provide the training itself free of cost. Now, we have limited spaces. We can only do so much. That is why we are asking you to send in your application or look us up on our website and contact us and see how well.
What has been the interest generated among persons who are willing to learn about botany and learn about lawn care and that sort of stuff?
Well, recently, because of the pandemic, a lot of people who work in the tourism industry turned to plants as a source of income. So I know cooks, I know waiters, waitress, who are now doing plants, have a small little plant nursery, and they're selling plants in order for them to get some income. So, what we are doing is providing these people with the training enough to actually make it worth their while. And people also have turned into starting to grow their own vegetables or grow their own food. This training will also help you, if you are into more vegetables and fruits, to grow these plants organically. As Harry was saying, we are 100% organic. So we focus on that, and we try teaching that as well.
I could see how this could be a great opportunity for people to even get their own business started. I'm sure Isana will be able to tell you more than anybody.
Definitely.
You want someone to take care of your garden who knows how to take care. They have to know how to prune properly. They can help you with fertilizing the soil, making sure those flowers pop out as beautiful and colorful as we see there. And people take so much pride in it. What do you think, have you found people contacting you to get in touch with more gardeners? You said your last cohort, you had 80% coming out with a job secured.
Yes. There are a few resorts and hotels that would only hire gardeners if they have, usually at the ending of the course, we offer a certificate.
Yeah.
And we have businesses that would only hire gardeners if they have our certificate or our recommendation. So we have people, or we have organizations that wait on us for us to have students so that they hire. Nice. So that's the reason why we decided that to do it again, to run it again. And I know it costs money. We were running courses after the grant was finished, and then we had people attending, but most of the people attending were people that just wanted to do it as a hobby. Now, Belize Botanic Garden wants to work with community to improve the community. In order for us to do that, then we have to provide these sort of training free of cost for the people that want to take it. All right. So we decided that we would secure funding to try it again and do it again for free and see how much, because we have people that are waiting just for this opportunity to get in. So we want to make it countrywide, so that to offer it people countrywide, so that we get more of a broad perspective.
Harry, tell us about the experience of learning to garden.
Well, on my experience, I grew up on a farm, and when I started working at the Botanic Gardens, it was like, pruning and stuff like this was nothing what I knew, But as years went by, the learning there, along with the staff, with Mr. Rudy, well, I can say it's been great. I've been getting to know different stuff, like landscaping design, propagation, different methods of propagation. It's worth it, if it's a field that you like and, you get engaged with it, then you just let your mind control you, right? And then you see different things popping up, like in the middle of nowhere, making your area pretty or beautiful, you know.
Everybody loves to see that, you know, whether they love a great landscaped garden, but we don't always know how to get there, or we don't have the green thumb.
Sometimes we'll tend to kill the plant itself. You know? No, but I mean, the learning of the botanic gardens has been great. And, I mean, for me, it's a nice a big experience in
From
my
a
life.
business end, do you guys also have perhaps like plants for retail and that sort of stuff, or is it only just for training and visual purpose?
Yes, I mean, Belize Botanic Garden needs to make, it's a non-profit organization, but we need to make money to run the gardens on a day-to-day basis. So to maintain 45 acres, like Harry said, we use a horse to kind of do some of the mowing, but then we have to finish it up, right? So we do have plants for sale. We also have our soil mix. We sell soil mix, we sell cocoa peat. We sell cocoa peat is the dust that you collect from the coconut husk.
Okay.
So the dust is used as a substitute of peat moss, which is used in a soil mixture to retain moisture. It's very light, absorbs a lot of water. So in areas that are dry, that is excellent. In potted plants, excellent as well. And it lightens up your soil. So we sell that. We sell the coconut fiber. We sell wood mulch. So we have some few products that we sell. And again, we also have plants for sale. We also have a health store in the San Ignacio market. So that's a branch of Belize Botanic Gardens, and a small nursery is at the market as well beside our shop.
Wow, okay. So, I mean, I already saw a bunch of variations earlier that I'm sure people will want to know where to get them. People who love gardening are always looking for new plants or new ways to take care of them. Who's the ideal candidate for this course? Do they have to know something already?
When it comes, the way we designed the course is we knew that we were gonna get people of different ages, and we knew that we were gonna get people with different plant knowledge.
Okay.
So we started it very simple, from what is a plant, way up to doing landscape installations. So in the 10-week, it's very intense, and you know, we take you up to that level, and that's one of the tests. Is for you to design and install a landscape. So you get to do that on site. You know, we provide all the tools, we provide the plants. All you get to do is use your imagination. We provide the books as well for you to get. We get in trainers from abroad as well to come in, and they voluntarily come in and give the training. So, you know, I do most of the horticulture training, and then we get some help, some assistance as well.
Do you guys take on like outside jobs, like if you were to be contacted and say, hey, I have a plot that I would want for you guys to design for me? Do you guys provide that kind of service?
Yes, we have done some few landscapes out of Belize Botanic Garden, but because of our staff, short staff, we tend to do that whenever we have a little time in our schedule. But yes, we get to do landscapes out of Belize Botanic Garden, yes.
But then they can also call and say, give me a list of recent graduates, those who don't have jobs secured as yet.
Yes, and that's what we are trying to do, is kind of come up with people, train people so that they can do this kind of work, because there's a lot out there, very little training on it, so we're trying to bridge that gap.
Nice. And so part of your test is creating your own landscape. Is it also trying to maintain plants that are very delicate as well? I mean, have you mastered how to keep an orchid alive, or?
We have one of the largest, I won't say the largest, but one of the largest orchid collections in Belize.
Okay.
And our orchid collection is strictly Belizean orchids only.
Okay.
Now, the second largest plant family in Belize is Orchidaceae, which are orchids. Okay. So Belize has tons of native orchids. Fabaceae, which is legumes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Orchidaceae is the second largest plant family with a little over 312 species. So that's a lot compared to other countries. So we have a good collection of the Belizean orchids. We have a little over 100. Now, in order for us to maintain those plants, we need to provide them with good care. Now, providing with the training also help us or give us helping hands
If you have 10 students, it gives us 10 hands to look after these collections as well. So while you're learning, you're actually helping out Belize Botanic Gardens as well.
So if I go there on a trip, I'm there from 7 till you guys close, is that sufficient time to see as much as I possibly can within 45 acres?
No, no.
So I'd have to go like 2 or 3 days, right?
You know, that is what we encourage is for Belizeans to keep on going. We have people who live in the surrounding areas that go almost every Sunday.
Yeah.
But maybe they go one Sunday and they have a picnic, then they go to the river. Next Sunday they probably go to the fire tower. We have a fire tower. Next Sunday they probably go there and look at orchids, you know, and that's how they do it. They walk around. It's very quiet. We have nice clean trails. So every Sunday is something different.
Yeah. Okay. So how do people sign up and when does the course start?
The course starts on the 30th of August. We wanted to do it a little bit sooner, but I guess because of the preparation for the training, then we're trying to push it so we can cover or get as much people to sign up as possible. We have our Facebook page, Belize Botanic Gardens, and we will be announcing interview dates then. The interviews will be in San Ignacio, and then you just present yourself, fill out an application, and see how if you qualify to get into.
How many spaces will you have available?
We have at the moment 10. We want to make it 15, but it all depends on what results we have when it comes to the applications.
And what's the cost?
The value of the course is $3,000. Now we are, like I said, we are providing full coverage or half partial. If you have businesses that can pay for their employees to take the training, then we'll gladly take that because that means that we can offer full scholarship for other people that actually need it.
So for those who are accepted, you are covering the cost of the course?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And if somebody wants to send their employee, they can pay.
They can pay partial if it all depends on what you have or what you want from the course as well, or what you can offer. Because if people pay that can pay, then we can offer free courses to others that cannot afford it, right? So that is how it will be, and so it all depends on what's the outcome when it comes to the interviews and applications.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So this is such a great opportunity. People just have to look out for the appointment dates. It's going to be on the Facebook page of Belize Botanic Gardens. And if you're looking for a brand new activity to do on the weekends, people can go for visits, take their own picnics, and have an enjoyable day in a beautiful surrounding.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming in and telling us all about it.
Thank you guys for having us.
All right, next time we'll bring you back to do some pruning tips, right?
Yeah,
So we don't murder our plants anymore. All right, and with that, we're going to go ahead and take our final break, and when we come back, we'll have our wrap-up, so stay tuned.
Are you a teacher or public sector employee who is thinking of owning your new home? Get the keys to your new home with Belize Bank's all-inclusive mortgage, the best financing option in Belize for your new home purchase or construction. Inclusive of all mortgage-related fees, no down payment, affordable terms, amazingly low interest rates. Visit our nearest branch to speak to one of our financial advisors to discuss how you can be one step closer to owning your new home. Some conditions apply.
Dwayne Moody, Isani Cayetano, Andrea Polanco, Al Lopez. Your News 5 Belize teams do whatever it takes, go wherever they need to go, so you can catch the story wherever you are, whenever you want, on whatever device. Channel 5 Belize on television, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Because news is now everywhere, all the time. And so are we.
2020 taught us the importance of being connected to the virtual world, and NextGen is here to keep its commitment to you. Even if you're physically apart, NextGen keeps you digitally connected.
Okay, everyone, thank you for following me today.
NextGen provides more than just an internet plan. They provide service plans that support all your online needs. Sign up today and get your NextGen's ultra high-speed internet service. NextGen, powered by Central TV and Internet.
Es un hecho. Únicamente con Smart obtienes todo realmente ilimitado. Solo con Smart obtienes datos ilimitados en cualquier momento. Mientras que con el otro proveedor solo son datos dobles los fines de semana. Con datos ilimitados todos los días no hay necesidad de esperar, así que es un hecho que nuestros planes ilimitados superan a la competencia. Por lo tanto, no permita que le digan cómo y cuándo usar sus datos. Y obtenga llamadas, mensajes de texto y datos ilimitados. Vive la verdadera experiencia de planes ilimitados con Smart. Es un hecho. Haga el cambio y viva Smart.
As Belize continues to shield its people from the worst ravages of this pandemic, we must continue to keep our country safe by ensuring reliable supply chains for critical components for the fight ahead. Belize's oxygen supply is safe with 300% more oxygen supply in country than is necessary. However, Fabregas continues to make our oxygen supply chain even more robust and responsive to a potential worst-case scenario. Through supply arrangements established and secured by Fabregas, our country can receive critical life-saving oxygen from 5 regional neighbors in Mexico and Central America through marine and/or land transportation. So, in addition, Fabregas has secured additional reliable sources of life-saving oxygen using a diversity of transportation modes and countries of origin. Fabregas Belize Limited. We got your back.
And of course, it has been quite an interesting show today. It's been very green.
Yeah, very green. The conversation that we had earlier with Dr. McLaughlin with regards to the cannabis industry and, of course, the proposed legislative changes that are to be made locally. I think because it's such an interesting topic and it's an ongoing one, to get a perspective from someone who is learned in the entire industry and the research with regards to cannabis is interesting.
Yeah.
His take on everything from the growing and cultivation to the legal aspects for consumption for medicinal or recreational purposes. I think hearing it from someone from Jamaica kind of, brings a certain fresh take.
And he's also a part of the licensing committee in Jamaica, which is a big part of what the proposed legislation has moving forward.
Yeah.
And, I think it's very telling that Professor McLaughlin is saying now, 5 years later, that he would encourage Belizeans to start to think of how you include traditional farmers. He speaks of how the licensing can be very expensive. We can learn from the experiences of other countries that have gone ahead of us with moving in this direction. And I understand that there's still people who have quite a few concerns about how it will increase access, and I think those are questions that also have to be answered. He spoke very clearly about understanding the composition of what's in cannabis and how that, like anything else, needs to be controlled. It's why you have the alcohol content on a bottle of alcohol, and the higher the alcohol content, the more potent it is, and you'll know if you'll have 1 drink or 2 or 3 and what difference it will have. So I think that, you know, it's just being able to see it in a different perspective and asking all the questions and addressing all the concerns.
The wealth of knowledge that comes along with the research.
Yeah.
And what he was able to share with us in terms of all the medicinal uses of cannabis, that kind of blew my mind away,
Yeah.
you know.
And the future use in looking at cancer, that's a key part as well. The University of West Indies has been doing this research for so long. They have learned and they have been able to uncover so much about, and especially for the region. I do feel like we don't pay attention as much to what kind of research is taking place there. And this morning he really shed a lot of light on having us understand how far they've come in looking at cannabis there.
Then on another note, with the Botanic Gardens being able to provide training for persons who are interested in learning how to landscape, learning how to deal with plants at the horticultural level and what have you, I think is equally as interesting. And I think it perfectly rounded out our conversation this morning.
I have to tell you, I mean, that's a great opportunity, and we do hope that people, any part of the country who's watching right now, if you are considering a new career, if you're interested in being an entrepreneur, this is a great business to be in. Anybody who has invested in whether it's their yard or property or landscaping for their business, they always want someone responsible or a company that knows what they're doing to come in and take care of it. And so this is a great way to get trained on how to do so. The costs that are associated are your travel and your housing and food, and they provide the training for free, or you can pay a part of it and you get the other portion discounted. So look out for the appointment dates at Belize Botanic Gardens on Facebook and see how you can take advantage of the opportunity. It's limited space. They're starting off with 10 persons with this cohort.
All right, so that does it for us, Marlene.
That's right. If you'd like to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. Find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYEBelize. Remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
To start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.